partner awards, and more on today's Milenomics Squared podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Simon.
And I'm Robert Dwyer.
And this is the Milenomics Squared podcast, no annual fee edition.
If you're not subscribed to the full Milenomics Squared podcast, you're missing out on a deeper dive into topics like the following. It's been a while since we've talked in this format here. I think we last spoke about Alaska status matches. Delta, JetBlue wanted to match Delta. Alaska wanted to match Delta. I did end up getting an Alaska status match. I talked about it on the paid show. They really handled that one in a clumsy manner, I think, right? They told me to buzz off. They told me I'd been matched before. And then all of a sudden I logged in and I had a 100K status with them. But I wonder, what good is that going to do me as a Boston-based traveler? I think there's 4 flights that they have to the West Coast. Maybe some AA benefits, some bizarre benefits when flying internationally. You said this status match stuff would be just a bunch of clicking around, and that's what it was up until I got that match, and that's going to be all the way through 2024 because I do have Alaska Bank of America credit cards. I think that was a nice opportunity. Is it going to be useful for me? Would it be useful for somebody who lived in the region? Would it be useful for anyone?
I mean, it's clearly useful for someone, yes, and you have, I think we talked about your route options, and I think that's something that someone needs to be considerate of. Whether you fly the airline a lot or not, if you're a Detroit-based traveler, for example, and you're in Alaska 100K, do you know how many nonstop flights there are that Alaska runs from Detroit, Robert?
I guess 1 or 2. I put that over-under at 1.5.
It's a great over-under because I think it's 1, and I think it's just to Seattle. And so You're looking at a lot of connections. And hey, some people love connections, I'm sure. But I will say this, Robert, you've got 4 options, and maybe 2 of them are options that I think you'd like to take. One is San Diego and one is San Francisco. One being a destination, maybe San Diego, and one maybe as a connection to, Hawaii, possibly. I know that that's somewhere that I love to go to and possibly somewhere that you would go to. So I think we've talked about it in the upgrade scheme. And when I say scheme, I mean scheme, Robert. I mean, they will upgrade you, 120 hours ahead of schedule? Is that right?
Yeah. But like so many of these things, as you start to look into them with any kind of seriousness, you see how frustrating and limiting things are. Hyatt has such a great reputation. Oh, you get these incredible upgrades. And gosh, I've tried to use them in Tokyo, for example, and I just run into blockade after blockade. And I was seeing the same thing here with Alaska. They pull through one companion like Delta does. No better. JetBlue pulls through more companions. So that's half the family if you're traveling as a family of 4 like I am. And the ability to use upgrade instruments. They give you these 4 guest upgrade certificates. They're not available for any flights that I looked for. So, it seems good on its face. But at the end of it, I'm thinking, boy, I'm not going to bend my schedule around on the hope that I might get upgraded to first. Their first cabins aren't that large on the planes that I checked.
They're not even that great.
And they're not that great, more importantly, right? It's not the greatest product in the world. And, if I'm honest, I have a grudge against them for taking what was a very good, very useful product, flying cross country for me in Virgin America. And that's gone. They said they're going to make their first better. They haven't. I really think that JetBlue and Alaska need to get it on already. That they need to become one airline that goes across the country, serves the East Coast and the West Coast, and provides a 4th option. I think JetBlue is going in a bad direction, chasing after Spirit. But, I think there's some court documents that said that their ultimate goal was to acquire Alaska. So one way or another, I think that does need to happen. And they need to have, well, like all things, you want hope for the best of everything, but that's rarely the way it works out. But maybe I'm projecting too far ahead. I just need to decide, am I going to fly with Alaska? And, I will if I see the opportunity there and they have a direct flight to the place I want to go at a good time. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty narrow use model.
And I just want to circle back on this idea of a scheme and the idea that you're not loyal to them. And I think that that's important because you're loyal to yourself, of course, as Milenomics here, but you're also loyal to the best flight you can get, maybe at the best price and at an ideal time. And I think that this could, follow me here, Robert, could play into a double booking situation where like you've got a flight coming up to Hawaii, right? And you're already booked. You've already got that booked on something. I think it's United Metal or something like that. And you're confirmed in the class of service that you want to be in. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You know my schedule better than me in a lot of cases.
Well, you double book now, right? You book a flight with Alaska, and it's basically a way to leverage the way that airlines are treating changes and cancellations right now. And so you book a flight with Alaska on the hope that you would get an upgrade, and 120 hours in, you reassess the landscape, so to speak. And you say, did I get upgraded on Alaska? Well, if I did, then I can back out of this United booking and save 200,000 United miles or whatever it ends up being and take the upgrade. And if you don't, well, then you cancel the Alaska flight and you take the flight that you've already booked. Or you look at another option and fly Delta. I think that you are a very rational traveler. And I think a status match like this where you put something into it, but you didn't put anywhere near what a real 100K would put into acquiring that status, I think it allows you the freedom to decide to use it or never use it, and it doesn't matter, right? Because ultimately you're loyal to yourself. So does anything I say sound like something you would maybe be interested in, or is that just the ravings of a lunatic?
No, it's something I hadn't considered, actually. And maybe I've used that in other situations. Say I'm flying with Delta and I haven't yet been upgraded and there's just 2 seats left, and I can pull down a lever and use an upgrades instrument that guarantees that upgrade ahead of time when it looks bleak and it's important to me. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to play it, and that's a great example that you had just there. Unfortunately, I can only do it for 2 people in my travel party, and I have to pay the piper for the other one, and then you forget to cancel the original itinerary, and then you start to wonder if a no-show is a complete loss. And we've talked about this before. A lot of things sound really good if you type them out or talk about them real quickly, and in practice, when you're trying to travel, it could be just the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of complexity.
Yeah, complexity here on this next item is probably, I don't know if we can get into the whole thing here on the no annual fee show, Robert, but we're talking about the churnability of American Express cards and the loss of churnability of American Express cards. There was a really nice period of time over the summer where there were ways to get almost any card that I was interested in from American Express over and over. And, years ago, we went to a 1 per lifetime language from American Express, and since then they've either bent or broken that in many different ways. And one of them was just they were ignoring that. They would not give you a pop-up, and they would give you the bonus, and you just get the card. And that has gone away as of, about a month ago now. And so we're pivoting to maybe employee offers, which I think we'll put the links here in the show notes. But the most current offer is 15,000 membership reward points when you spend $4,000 on some of the popular business cards that we like, which are the Business Platinum and the Business Gold. And if you can do that spend in a bonus category, that's even more lucrative. And so it's a nice kicker. We haven't seen those spending bonuses that we've seen in years past and talked about here on this very podcast in years past. And these employee offers are capped at 5 right now, but it's 5 per card. And so you combine that with the churnability of some of these cards that we were able to get in the last 6 months or so, and I think a windfall of employee offers can be coming in the mail with just a few clicks.
You really covered the history of Amex there in the past year in one concise statement. I have friends in real life who are so angry at American Express. They've never really done anything very creative or lucrative with them, and they just get the pop-up every time they go to apply. And they don't know why. They don't know if they did something wrong. It's like, do you not like the look of my face, or why do I get this history pop-up? I've had one card from you ever. And so you've got, on one hand, people who have amassed millions of membership rewards easily, and other people who can't get a single card with them. But they're a very confusing bank to interact with. And for a long time, when you would come at them one way, they'd say no. And if you come at them another way, they'd say yes. And, a lot of people will be convinced sometimes that they've cracked the code of how MX is doing something. Stand on your head this way and click this thing in this sequence and it works for you. And in a lot of cases, there truly is, I think, a random number generator going on over there. So in that environment, I can't help but think that something's going to loosen up here, because we know it's very important for Amex to get approvals. And Amex, we're here for you. Please approve us and we will apply for more cards. So yeah, kind of a low period, but yeah, time to go do some other things with them. Like you said, those employee offers are fantastic. And we talk about a lot on the page show on all the great things that Amex has done in the past year. And I am doing those employee offers daily right now. It's a really good thing.
Yes. And a great reminder there that you and I think, have tried harder than anyone in the world probably to shake out like 150,000 business gold offer or 190,000 business platinum offer. And with all the complexity of even just getting the offer to show up, then when you apply, if you get a pop-up, I think it's important to mention the pop-up is legitimate. We're not saying that, if there is a no lifetime language or whatever it is, the pop-up that says you have had this in the past is going to stop you from getting a sign-up bonus on that card. And the absence of a pop-up is usually a good thing. So if we could force there to be no pop-up, that'd be the ideal situation, right?
Yeah. Very tricky. Like I said, a lot of ways to come at them.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this topic on our most recent show, but this is actually going to be a deeper dive than what we talked about on the paid show into partner awards, I think.
Yeah. On the last page show, we were talking about the highs and lows of the game, just in a single week at that Alaska example. You're denied, you're approved, your credit card is over here, it's over there. The partner award situation seems to be high time for people to get together. In the Boston area here, they have something called cuffing season. Have you ever heard of cuffing season?
What? Where?
I guess I hear from some people that when the weather gets cold, people kind of want to, meet up with their partner and kind of say, we're going to be committed for the cold season. Maybe we'll come out in the spring and the winter, in summer, and see other people. But for now, we're going to commit to each other. We're going to cuff.
What? Is this like a Groundhog Day thing or what?
I think it's a New England thing. I'll have to hear from listeners if this is just a thing in the circles I run with. But it seems to be the season where people are getting together. Airlines are getting together. And so let's start with the first one. We talked about Qatar and JetBlue having partnerships. Again, highs and lows. JetBlue, you could book JetBlue Mint with Qatar miles, and now vice versa. And then they were bad value, and then they're kind of not a great value right now. But then I saw today, Hawaiian, you can book Hawaiian with JetBlue miles, points, whatever they call them, on JetBlue's site if there's availability with Hawaiian. So JetBlue and Qatar going back and forth, and now they can book Hawaiian with JetBlue. But all this stuff is so predicated on there being partner award space. And I don't know if some airlines care whether they're participating in the partnerships. They love to create the partnership, but they don't love to open up partner award availability, it seems.
Yes, I think that's a great way of just summarizing what we're going to talk about right here. It's nice to talk about this as something that works, and on paper and academically, yes, you can book Hawaiian. You can book Qatar with JetBlue TrueBlue points, but there's this irony that happens, and I've looked at the Hawaiian angle of it, so I can speak to that, because that's not a new combination. You were able to book Hawaiian with JetBlue points for quite some time, and I travel to Hawaii a lot. And I thought, I'm going to do this. Yeah, this sounds great. And at the time you had to call. Now you can do it online, which is great. But, I called in and, the dates that were available and the flights that were available, they were the flights that were the least expensive. And so when you look at the cost, I mean, there are days, Robert, from Los Angeles where a flight to Hawaii is under $200 one way. Mm-hmm. You can go under $300 round trip. And when you're looking at, less than 1 cent per point, you're better off holding those JetBlue points to book on JetBlue because you'll get more for them. And that's the true irony, is that the spoiled inventory is what the partner gets right now. And the spoiled inventory is priced higher than it would be priced with cash because every airline likes cash more than anything else. And so I believe you still do need these fare buckets for Hawaiian, for example. T, Z, or L are the fare buckets. I just think it's nice that you could see them online, but I don't think in practice they're going to map to days where it makes any sense, especially if you're going to transfer points over. What do you think about that?
That's so well said. And I see the same thing with the JetBlue Mint being booked with Qatar miles. That is only a good value when that flight gets expensive. And when that flight gets expensive, you probably want to find another option to travel on it. In other words, that JetBlue Mint flight would need to be over $1,000 for that to make sense over using, say, the Amex Business Platinum 35% rebate because you get 1.5 cents a piece out of them. I guess a wild card in all of this is the possibility that there's a huge transfer bonus, and then that could help. But your point there is so spot on. The game is going in a very bad direction if the only time partner availability is there is when the flight is cheap, because there's no value there then. Right. The one remaining thing is that international flight, that international premium cabin flight, that if you can find it, enables you to do something with points and miles that you couldn't justify in your mind doing otherwise. And that's still there, but it is so narrow, the opportunities to do that. And I don't believe, if I see a blog post of somebody saying something is wide open, it's almost always the opposite of that. It's not on the days that I want to go, so I don't care how wide it open it is on some string of Tuesdays in some time of the year that's not interesting to me at all. So it's hard to explain to somebody who's getting into this game, who has a very specific use model, right? They're spending a lot of money to get some foreign country where their family is. And then you say, you should use points and miles. And they're like, I want to go to Japan. You should get Alaska miles. And like, what? Why? They're trying to follow along with you. And then if the final kick in the pants is there's never any award availability, you feel like a jerk for recommending it to them. I mean, it's worked for you, but if it doesn't work for them in the most simplest of use cases, they're going to be rightly skeptical of the situation.
Yeah. And then you have the possibility of a bunch of orphaned miles, for example. Like talking to someone about this hypothetical JetBlue Qatar, you've got so much information that is now stale just a month later, first of all, on that. You could have someone sitting there reading and not fully understanding what to do, transferring a bunch of Chase Ultimate Rewards into JetBlue miles, thinking that that's the way to do this, and they're actually going the wrong direction because you're using Qatar Avios to book onto JetBlue. I mean, there are so many places that this could go wrong and leave someone with miles stranded in a program that they don't have a good use for. Let's move on, Robert, to this next one here, which is ITA and Virgin Atlantic mashed up with FlyingBlue miles.
I mean, what a weird combination. I guess they're all kind of SkyTeam-ish.
European-ish?
Yeah. I mean, I think Delta has a big stake in or partnership in all of them. Like, I guess we could include Delta on this list too, because I think you can theoretically book an award with Delta on ITA Metal, the former Alitalia, but it'd probably be a horrendous value because that's the way Delta does things transatlantic. But I guess ITA then is going to be heavily owned by Lufthansa at some point. So talk about that. I was just reading, I think we both have been listening to Morgan Housel's excellent, I think it's his second book, Same as Ever. And he talks about, trying to acquire knowledge that's going to be there for a long time. Read more history rather than breaking news. What do you remember a newspaper article that you read in 2011? You don't remember any newspaper articles you read in 2011, but there's a good chance that if you read a good book in 2011, you would at least remember an idea from it. And with this, it's like, oh yeah, let's book. Let's use FlyingBlue to book ITA. And how long is that going to be around for? Is that going to be in a vacation window that's useful to you? Is there any award availability? Again, same exact thing. I looked at 2 potential dates that this could be useful for me. No availability whatsoever, and even FlyingBlue's availability on their own metal was horrendous. So, again, an interesting development, but short-lived and maybe one to ignore.
The idea of partner awards, it was so much was written about them. Oh, they're a great way to save money and save miles, and sometimes you don't have to pay fuel surcharges, and there's all these benefits to it, but the inventory doesn't even align anymore, and I think that's one of the biggest things. I have very little confidence that if I were to see something on one of these sites, that it would transfer to the other site as partner availability, and then it would price correctly too. And all of that, is the backdrop of like family travel and everyone depending on me, and my travel pattern has changed too, where I want to book things that I can cancel, and so then am I stuck with a bunch of Virgin Atlantic or FlyingBlue miles, and then not only do I need to win the lottery once, I need to win the lottery again to get those miles back out the second time or maybe the third time. And I don't like that, especially with miles that can expire or programs that you're just not very comfortable or familiar with.
That's so true. I was thinking you just need to have a ton of miles and be able to push them around all over the place. And sure, you're going to have some orphan miles, but if you have enough orphan miles, then you eventually will be able to use them. But I logged into my Virgin Atlantic account the other day, and I've got like 300,000 miles times 2, maybe one of my wife's account too. I'm trying to think why that was. And it's because you used to be able to book Delta domestically with Virgin Atlantic very nicely, and you can't do that anymore. So now they're just kind of sitting there waiting for something in the future. But is this the opportunity? I doubt it. It's always infuriating to me when I read an article saying that, Virgin Atlantic, a great use of those is to fly ANA first class. You go to Japan a lot, don't you? I have searched ANA first class using Virgin Atlantic miles so many times. I have never seen a single seat on a date that would be useful, or even a single seat. So that is like a mirage of a redemption to me. And you bump into people who actually did it, and maybe for 2 people, but doing it for 4 people on dates that worked for me, even 2 people on dates worked for me, I'm not seeing it. So really, I think the industry takes these sweet spots, these rare unicorn redemptions, and kind of predicates the whole hype machine on, get this credit card, do this thing, do this series of things, and then you can be flying ANA first class like I am. You really need to check this stuff before you go acquire all the points or do all the stunts to get the thing, because a lot of times it's just not a realistic goal, that redemption that you hear about.
Fantastic, Robert. And as you were saying that, my mind started jumping into ANA and the idea of partner awards, and how partner awards are very binary. You're either booking or not booking. With their dedicated miles, if let's say alternate universe, you and I fly a ton of ANA flights or credit flights to ANA, or have an ANA credit card and use it all the time, and we earn native ANA miles.
Yeah.
Completely different, right? We can even transfer in from membership awards. Let's get into our universe here. With real miles from the carrier that has the airline and the metal, maybe they don't have any saver availability, but they've got awards that are, reasonable, and you can book them. And, the domestic version of that is United or AA, where, the price is kind of dynamic, but, it floats up a little and you go, well, it's only 90,000. Sometimes it's 75, sometimes it's 90. I can take it either way. You don't have that with partners. These are the seats that we have, or there's nothing, and it's you get to book or you don't get to book. And I think that is very different for someone that's so used to this dynamic pricing. We have the history of knowing prior to dynamic pricing what the system was like. If you're new to the game and dynamic pricing is the only thing you've known, this is actually flipping it in reverse and taking you into a world that you're not comfortable or familiar with possibly dangerous results, like you're saying, stranding a bunch of miles and then not ever being able to use them for that thing you want to do.
Yeah, that stinks. I think a reasonable person would say, they would ask, okay, I want to fly to Japan. How many Alaska miles do I need? Well, it depends. It depends on, you book early, you book late, you book premium economy, you book first.
Connect in Taipei, you don't connect in Taipei.
Exactly.
Dynamic pricing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So complicated. And next one is Alaska talking about consolidating the charts. You would think making it simpler. I think the headline that made was it's mostly getting worse, meaning it's going to cost you more Alaska miles to book those partner awards. And that's true. If you look at the mean cost of Alaska miles to take a premium international partner award flight, it's gone up. But what does it matter if there's no availability being presented to us, right? You could say it's 60, you could say it's 80. Like, what do I care? I mean, I almost practically rather have it be like 100 and be able to book it than to have it just be, well, the chart went up, but there's never any availability, and that's life. I mean, I looked the other day, Boston to Tokyo on JAL, which is something I've done before. I've done it before multiple times. And right now, when I look at the entire calendar, it's open 330 days, I see one day with business, one seat. It's like they put it in there as a token placeholder. Oh yeah, we release partner availability one day on the Tuesday in October. Yeah. What's your problem?
We're the only two guys probably talking about raising the price of awards as a lever to increase the supply of these awards. But I think this really loops back to the original conversation we had at the top end of this show, where there's no change fees, there's no cancellation fees. Why not hold every possible date you might want to take a trip for? And I've even seen anecdotal evidence that there are brokers doing that, holding weeks at a time, and then being able to say, oh, well, which day or whatever day you want, I can cancel. We called it catch and release and catch again, I think was what we called it a year or two ago. And there's evidence that people are doing that. So I think that it's frustrating. I do like that, we start the show talking about Alaska and your status match, and we end the show talking about Alaska and their miles. And those two things are not necessarily directly related, because I think there's a benefit to booking with partner award availability in Alaska, and that they just do have some unique partners. But the pricing does tend to go crazy. And one of the areas that I think didn't go crazy and stayed reasonable is booking on Japan Airlines. And so one of our tips of the week here, Robert, is that you can now book premium economy on JAL with Alaska miles. And I think this is kind of a big deal because, we had talked about this a lot in the buildup to your first Japan trip, I want to say, or maybe second Japan trip. And at that time, the only way to do it was, I think, with JAL miles or with Avios, British Airways, right? And now this is a third avenue that's opened up, with American Airlines still not able to do this.
Right. That is weird, because they do have an award chart, American Airlines. I think American Airlines is probably the most common way that people book JAL Medal Awards. And you can book, if the space is there, economy, business, and first. But premium economy has been strangely absent on their website. And I think even when you call, maybe you have to call Australia or New Zealand or something like that to give them the secret handshake or something like that. But I have never heard of anybody being able to book premium economy on JAL with AA miles. You could do it theoretically with Qantas or Asia Miles or some other carrier, but similar to JAL and British Airways, the taxes and fees are quite high, in the neighborhood of $300 when I check for one premium economy seat, right? So the cancellation might not be too bad, but you are paying in a significant number of miles, maybe on the order of 70,000 or something like that from the East Coast to Japan, but you have $300 per person on top of that. So yeah, that Alaska development is quite nice, because I just don't see JAL releasing the partner space in economy, in business, in first, and a lot of the trends that we've seen in the past are not occurring anymore. The tendency to release really close to departure, or right when they first come out, they're it's getting picked over, and so the game is constantly changing. But I think this is a nice little win. We kind of bumped into this coincidentally, kind of looking at what was available and
brute force searching.
Yeah. So it just seemed to get buried in the announcement, but I like it, and I booked it. I booked it. I grabbed four
Nice.
seats, and it provides a way back. Now, the trick is, can these be upgraded? And we were talking before we recorded on how hard it is to find things with a Google search these days. You find this bad information that Google has then put a layer of AI on top of it and bungled the situation further. And everything's going to voice like you're listening to us right now, and video, and finding information like this. You find the obvious information, not the stuff you were actually looking for. I was trying to print the other day, and I ran out of my black and white print cartridge, and all I had was a color cartridge. And I wanted to search to see if it was possible to print with a color cartridge, a black and white document. And all the stuff that I find is just that I should click, black and white if I want to print black and white. It's like, no, that's not the information I'm looking for. And if I was Googling for that, I'd be in a very bad place. So it's so hard to figure out this stuff, and you have to take practically 3 or 4 trips yourself to poke all the holes and see whether things are possible. The question I have is, and I'd love to hear if somebody has some feedback, leave it in the comments. Is it possible to upgrade with cash maybe at the airport on the day of a JAL metal flight booked with a partner like Alaska? Because I'd love to be able to upgrade to business class on the day of. I look at a bunch of seats on every plane going out, and JAL just isn't releasing them for some reason. So I'd love to hear if that's possible with an award ticket. No, it's possible if I book with JAL miles. I did it. Crazy situation at the airport. Binders of information. 5 people involved, but I was able to do that. But JAL miles are hard to come by. So you were talking up earlier about booking with ANA miles, running around with the ANA credit card. It's not the way we typically roll around here, but it becomes very interesting to go collect these obscure foreign currencies. That might be the path forward at some point.
I mean, JAL is really obscure, Robert, because as far as I know, outside of Marriott, there's no other transfer partner for them. ANA is a little bit different, but you're saying upgrade with JAL miles or upgrade with cash?
I don't know. You
don't
I want
care,
them to tell me.
right?
Give me a way. Give me a path.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
because I can handle premium economy. I guess I'd like to have business class buttoned up. I talked on the Paid Show last week about buttoning things up way ahead of time, and just resting assured that you have what you want. And like we were talking about with Alaska domestic upgrades, right? You don't want to say, hey, we're going on this trip. Oh, it's going to be a nice lie flat. Well, maybe kind of. Hopefully it'll get better.
Well, we're either in the last row of the entire plane or we're lie flat. Yep, we'll figure it out when we get to the airport, right?
I don't like that.
That's not, that's not how I can do it either. So, yeah. I guess the last thing I'll say is you really got to try stuff out. There's things that definitive guides tell you cannot book partner award. That partner award availability for JAL premium economy does not exist. And, that's just not true. You're here saying you did it just a couple days ago. And so I think that it's really important because of how quickly this game changes. The one truth that I can offer to Morgan Housel here, Robert, is when you try things, usually you're rewarded with something. When you don't, you just do it all academically. Oh, well, this person said this is impossible. I think you're going to miss out on things. So my whole advice today is just try stuff. Yeah,
I like that. Ready to close it out? Thanks for joining us this week. For a more in-depth discussion about points and miles, visit us at patreon.com/milenomics. There you'll get a special link to listen to additional content right in your mobile podcast app or on your computer, where we speak more freely about topics like these.
As always, you can reach us on Twitter. I'm at Milenomics, and Robert is at Robert Dwyer. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, we'll see you on the site.